Welcome, my darlings, to my humble chateau. Please make yourself very comfortable. Relax your mind and release your imagination to me. I will bring you a story to entrance and entertain. Perhaps a frightening one. Perhaps a steampunk. Perhaps a bit of mythology. Anyway, sit back, enjoy, and subscribe to me. Granny Decay and the Halloween of '94. Do you remember the scariest time of your life? I do. It was the time I met Granny Decay. We called her Granny Decay because her garden was full of weeds, dead plants, and littered with the bones of dead animals. Little did we know, as 12-year-olds, that her garden wasn't the worst part of her home. It was the Halloween of '94, and me and my friends were allowed out trick-or-treating for the first time alone. Well, with the exception of having my older brother tag along. He didn't like it, neither did we. We also didn't like when he told us we would have to give up some of our stash of candy in compensation. In truth, it wasn't such a bad thing. Our street was long and relatively quiet in terms of traffic, with the vast majority of house participating in the festivities. It was going to be a good horde. We could give a little to Jason, my brother, and still have loads for ourselves. Granny Decay's house was at the end of the street. Every kid in our neighborhood knew her house and dared each other to go and knock on her door. None did, though. Sure, some of the braver kids got a few steps past the rickety gate, but their courage soon fled, as did their pals. It was only a matter of time before me and my friends were standing outside the broken gate. It seemed to grin at us, its broken slates like jagged teeth. "I dare you," said Johnny to me, removing his plastic Dracula fangs so he could speak better. Jason, my older brother by 4 years, snorted. Smoke curled from his nose. "If you're so brave, you do it." He punched Johnny on the arm. "I'm telling Mum you're smoking," I said with a slight smirk. Jason plucked the cigarette from his lips and blew smoke into my face. "Do that and I'll tell her about the mag you stole from Dad's collection." My cheeks reddened with his blackmail as he twirled his Zippo lighter between his fingers. That's what I thought. It was his turn to smirk. "Hey, Jace," called the blonde girl in a white gown with red splotches from the opposite side of the road. "What you doing? We're all going to Jessica's house. Wanna come?" "Hey, Sandy, I gotta watch my kid brother," he said, rubbing my hair playfully. "Maybe another time." "Cool, see you later," she shouted as another girl dressed as a witch pulled at her arm. Jason smiled and waved. Then he turned to me and his smile faded. "I dare you," Johnny said again, looking at me. "You're the one who always goes on about being the bravest." Johnny rubbed at his arm and shot my brother a hurt look. "Look!" Henry pointed his tentacled arm. I'm still not sure what type of monster he was, some cross between a winged octopus and a man. The curtains twitched again and a cold shiver went through me. "It's her! Granny Decay, I saw her!" he said, still pointing at the dirty window. Like her garden, her house was in real disrepair. The once white walls shearing had turned a rotten green, vines and plants snaking in and out of the boards, making it seem like a garden invaded the home. An old mailbag discarded by what I imagine was a scared mailman hung snagged on a thorny bush. Wrappers and scrap pieces of paper littered the barren grass, adding to the cesspool. "I double-dog dare you," Johnny said. I could tell he was just as scared as I was. Even Jason looked a tad bit frightened by the prospect. There are pivotal moments throughout childhood. This was one such occasion. Even though I was scared, another thought overpowered that fear. If I was the one who knocked on Granny Decay's door, I would be remembered forever. Do you remember that time when Grant Hinton knocked on Granny Decay's door back in '94? Yeah, what a legend. He's too scared. Jason Punch was light, but it brought me back from my daydream. The smile faded from his face as I locked eyes with him. Here, hold my candy. I shoved the cauldron into Henry's hand and pushed at the rickety gate. No way! I heard Johnny hiss as I left them, slack-jawed behind me. I was halfway up the broken path when my fear finally caught up with me. Each weighted step after felt like I was wading through custard. I saw the net curtain twitch again, and I swallowed. An old lady in a white nightgown with long white hair stood frozen behind the thin gray net. I looked back to my brother and my friends. Their jaws were still wide open. The local kids had started to gather around them. Draculas, witches, Frankensteins, ghosts, all watched my advance up the path. With each additional kid, I knew I had to go on. I couldn't turn around now. The door loomed in front of me. Cobwebs covered the porch, every crevice taken up by large black spiders at the center of their webs. I swallowed again and raised my hand. My throat felt as dry as sandpaper as the boom of my knock echoed through the house. I heard the slow drag of feet over wooden floors, then a latch being removed. The door handle turned one way, then the other, then back again. Then the door opened. "You're the first kid who's ever knocked on my door." Granny Decay smiled a gap-toothed smile, and the fear fell away. She didn't seem that scary. "Aren't you supposed to say something?" I didn't know what to say as she smiled at me again. I never intended for the door to open, let alone have a conversation with her. Trick or treat?" I said, past the lump in my throat. "That's it, dearie. Come in, I've got candy in the kitchen." I looked over my shoulder as Granny Decay slid down the dark hallway. Jason, Johnny, and Henry all shook their heads no, but a few other kids started to cheer and clap. What was I supposed to do? I stepped into Granny Decay's house. Once inside the gloomy, musty interior, I saw more cobwebs with small carcasses in the corner of walls and doors. A mouse, a moth, something I couldn't discern. The drab gray walls were pockmarked with moth holes. Picture frames of what I assumed was her family hung haphazard from picture rail. The accumulated dust of years obscured their inhabitants. I crept down the hall behind the shuffling old lady. I could see the kitchen in question over her stooped back. A large bowl of candy shone like a precious treasure. Treasure I would bring to school and gloat over. "Every year I buy candy, and every year it goes to waste. Do you know why?" she asked as I approached the bowl. Yes, ma'am. Your house is creepy, and we're all too scared to knock on your door." "Creepy? Why, isn't that what Halloween's all about?" She turned with a handful of chocolate coins. I took them and glanced up into her eyes. Her irises were wide and as black as tar in the gloom. "But you knocked," she said, watching me. I pulled a strand of gossamer that was stuck to the back of one of the coins. Maybe the candy had sat there for so long that a cobweb had covered them. A fly buzzed past my ear and I swatted it away. Granny Decay watched as it flew past. A brave one or a fool? The fly flew into a web and buzzed noisily. Granny Decay licked her lips as the spider came charging out to snare its prey. Maybe both, I chuckled. But they'll be talking about this at school tomorrow. I stuffed another chocolate into my mouth. Granny Decay smiled and turned back to the spider. Did you know that the pirate spider can not make webs of its own to catch prey? So it invades others and steals its food, and even eats the other spider? I swallowed. The chocolate stuck to the sides of my throat, thick and gloopy. They invade the webs of other spiders in a bid to lure them out and kill them. Gently they pluck the strings of the web. She motioned her hands like pincers. Each one plucked at an invisible web. Once the host spider has ventured out to investigate, the pirate makes its move. First, it encloses its prey with its two massive front legs. They're fringed with elongated spines called macrocetae, which trap the other spider in a prison-like basket. Then, the final move. She turned as my arms sagged. The candy dropped to the dusty floor and rolled away. The pirate spider bites its prey and uses its fangs to inject a powerful venom that instantly immobilizes it. The weight settled into my legs. I couldn't move. Every part of me was immobilized. Total paralysis. Granny Decay blinked then, but instead of 2 eyes opening, 6 eyes did instead. As her normal eyes blackened, 2 above them and 1 on either side blinked again. 2 black, spindly legs crept over her shoulder as more craned around her sides. Granny Decay scuttled over to me and picked me up with her legs. A stream of silk spewed from her mouth as she twirled me around. The sticky web covered my face like a hood. The sounds of the house muffled as more covered my ears. Soon I was cocooned. She dragged me along the hall. I could only see the outline of shapes through the silk. She stopped suddenly. Then I was dragged a few feet more, and my world turned upside down. Her spindly legs hooked me up on the ceiling, then methodically worked their way down over her work. Build a web, catch a fly, wrap it up in silk, then devour it at leisure, she cooed as she scuttled out the door. I tried to scream, but my voice wouldn't work like the rest of my body. My silent struggle didn't even make me swing in my prison. The only thing that worked were my eyes, but they couldn't do anything but watch as the door opened again. I shut them tight as the dark figure came to devour me. Then the web came free from my face, and Jason's voice whispered in my ears. "Fucking dick, I told you not to go in there!" Jason freed me from the silk bag and threw my arm over his shoulder. I managed to move my head slightly. The other bags hung from the ceiling. Some bulged, some sagged. Others had been split open to reveal dark, moist interiors. I didn't know if it was the underside of the silk web or the inside of the hapless victim. My feet still didn't move right, so he practically dragged me to the hall. "Where has she gone?" I asked, surprised that my voice worked again, and winced at how loud it sounded in the hollow corridor. "Shh! She's gone back that way. We've got to get out of here before she comes back." Jason heaved me upright again as I started to slide down the doorframe. "Come on." More flies. My lucky day. My blood froze, and the hair on the back of my neck did a better job of standing up than I did. We turned as one. The slow creep of dread wormed its way up my spine, slowly tickling my skin as it went. She hung in the doorway, her human feet inches above the floor, her spidery legs lost in the doorway to the kitchen. Her eyes blinked. It was the most menacing thing she could have done, something so natural that it unnerved me further. Webs shot out of her mouth and stuck to my chest. Jason heaved me away. The tug-of-war ensued, one where my life was the prize. "My pocket, Grant! Get my smokes!" "I don't think this is the time to be smoking, Jason," I screamed at him. How the hell could he be thinking about indulging in his newest habit? "My lighter, you dickhead! Get the lighter!" Suddenly I knew what he was wanting to do. I stretched my hand out, and my fingers gently poked into the top of his pocket as my body jerked back towards Granny Decay. Jason heaved around my waist, and my fingertips slid over the cigarette's box. "Come to me, flies." Granny Decay's huge forelegs collapsed on themselves and bent through the doorframe. One pierced either side of the doorframe. I could see now that what I thought were moth holes were, in fact, leverage holes. My fingers dragged down the box, one index finger on one side, middle finger on the other. I squeezed them together and pulled. The cigarette packet came free, and I snatched the lighter in the box. Quick as a flash, I turned and struck the metal reel. A spark flew, but no flame. Again and again I tried, but the thing wouldn't work. "Jason, it won't work!" I stuck it again and again. The smell of paraffin caught my nose, but still no flame spewed forth from the Zippo. Jason grunted as Granny Decay pulled us down the hall. As if scenting prey, the spiders in their webs shook at their mistress's impending triumph. Praying that any god would hear me, I closed my eyes and struck the lighter again. I felt the heat on my fingers and opened my eyes to the most glorious sight of yellow-tinged fire. Granny Decay screeched at the fire and pulled even harder. She had been toying with us. Her strength was unbelievable. 1 minute we were by the front door. The next we were seconds away from her clutches. The fire burnt my hand, and I remember what I had. I brought the flame under the web, and it burnt like dry tinder, then snapped. I fell on Jason in a heap, and we both scrambled to our feet. "Quick, give it here!" Jason made a grab for the Zippo and snatched it out of my hand. He placed against the peeling wallpaper at the skirting board, and soon fire rolled up the wall. Granny Decay screeched again and made a lunge for us. One of her legs shot out and pierced Jason's shoulder. The lighter fell from his hand and burnt against the opposite wall. "Jason!" I shouted as he fell to the floor. As the fire billowed around us, Granny Decay's screeches filled the hall as a gray-black smoke clogged the passage. Soon only her screeches told me she was trapped in the kitchen. I pulled Jason to the front door and kicked it open to the fresh air. The army of kids gasped as fire flew out behind us like we were action heroes in an adventure movie. Jason clutched at his shoulder, a tight grimace on his face as we fell to the pavement. "Jason, are you okay?" I asked as black blood leaked through his fingers. "I think so. Bitch stabbed me in the arm." He pulled away his hand. The blonde girl from earlier raced up to him and started to kneel, but Jason, seeing her, grunted and stood up. "I think I need the hospital," he said, and reached an arm over the girl's shoulder. She smiled delightedly to have his attention. "You're not the only one who will be remembered for this, Grant," he said with a chuckle. So quoth this raven. Tell me, my darlings, when you were growing up, was there that one house either abandoned and everyone knew it was haunted, or did some crazy person live there that no one dared knock on their door? Tell me in the comments. I really want to know. And if you like this, give Grant Hinton a look up on Reddit. Let him know you enjoy his stories. And give me a like and subscribe and ring the little bell so you know when to come up and trick or treat sometime. Bye-bye, my darlings.